So before we get started here, I think like give me like a few thoughts like regarding, your current site and your presentation and portfolio, branding, what are you feeling you need to like improve on? What kind of brings you to getting a web assessment done? What are you hoping to kind of polish up here?
That I don't know. That's why I'm coming to you guys because I'm trying to bring on higher end clients. So I'm trying to figure out what I need to do to get their attention and be able to get better and my foot in the door of those particular people.
Yeah, yeah, totally fair. Yeah, I think it's nice to just have a sit down with someone that has kind of like an outside perspective, and get like another set of eyes on everything. Every once in a while, even, like there are photographers that will come to us or go elsewhere, once a year to have someone sit down and just like
Right,
look at everything and discuss what's working, what's not, what could be tightened up. Um,
right.
so for our purposes here, like when we are looking at your website, like to start out, I think maybe talking a little bit about the web template that you're using, what's working, what's not, any other recommendations I might make just kind of on the site in general.
Sure.
So my first kind of initial thoughts is when I land here, I think, it's nice. It's uncluttered. It's easy to use design for the template. It's very
Mm,
functional. It loads quickly. All of the links work. I'm not noticing any kind of like bugs or loading issues, so that's great.
yeah.
Um, the things that I also noted though, is maybe I'm seeing a little bit too much text or info on the landing page.
Okay.
I usually like to see photographers leading with more imagery, let the photos do the talking. Um,
Right.
and the other thing here on the landing page, as well as maybe in the galleries too, which we can talk about later, but I think that the images feel a little small here. Like
Okay.
I think they might have a bit more impact if you had a template that kind of um, just showed them off, maybe in larger size or maybe masonry grid. But for the landing page galleries here, because I know that these images jump into different galleries, but it'd
Right.
be nice to see those a little more large,
Sure.
and just kind of making more of a presence on the site.
Okay.
Um, and then in terms of the template and the layout, I think, like I said, I think this is nice and clean and minimal. I think, it might be a little sterile, but I think for the type of photography you're doing, it could work. Maybe a little more personality, but I think the minimal, like kind of elegant, simple design does work for this site as a whole. You might consider a template that supports those larger image sizes. Maybe
Uh-huh.
this one does. I know you're running on Format as your website platform. So I did also pull together a few different templates to just quick look at.
Okay.
And maybe we can talk about what's working for those and what might work on your site as well.
Sure.
I just want to jump over here to, well, let me move this out of the way. So I know this is the template I believe that you're using now. And the one thing I noticed that is good about this is it has a nice layout here with this masonry grid. And I
Yeah.
think, like obviously you have some modifications on your template that um, you've changed up to fit with your site and with your work. But
Right.
I do kind of like this masonry grid here because it kind of allows you to emphasize different images, and you use others as kind of like a narrative point, where this is probably more thoughtful and purposeful inside of the galleries rather than on that landing page.
Mhm.
But that's just something to keep in mind. This one design wise, like the typeface matches up with yours. I think this is also still very easy to navigate. It could be easy to make these tweaks to yours to just freshen up the look with minimal kind of like work
Right.
involved design wise.
Do
Um,
you
yeah, go ahead.
do you recommend instead of how I have it right now, where I've got some categories at the top and then the primary categories on that landing page as thumbnails? Do you recommend I just have categories at the top and then just imagery throughout the rest, or
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways you could spin it. I mean, obviously the top here on both yours and this template, this base template, it
yeah.
works to just have these kind of categories up here. And this is something that I had made additional notes about, and we can kind of talk more about. But the organization, I think, makes sense. And the one thing is, I think that it's totally purposeful and meaningful to have a website where your different types of categories and the different photos you shoot appear on the landing page. So it's
Uh-huh.
easy for someone who visits that site to just see, okay, I'm looking for some lifestyle photography from this person. They
Right.
see lifestyle right there on the landing page, click on that image, and that expands into um,
Gotcha.
their lifestyle gallery. In this case, I think that what I'm seeing here is some of the navigation at the top here doesn't necessarily like resonate with the galleries down here.
Right.
There's more places to go down here than there are up here in this navigation.
Sure.
And I think the problem with that is that once you click into, we can click into the commercial video section. Once you're in this gallery, you can't find those other categories without either going back to the homepage or going back through this navigation here. Whereas
Right.
if you just had simplified categories at the top here, it makes a
Right.
much more kind of like streamlined process to get back to those images.
Gotcha.
But yeah, and then like I have two more here and we can just take a look at them. They're a little similar. So this one, obviously, like, not with the dog and cat photography, but
Right.
for this one, I think this is nice if you would want to go with maybe a little more personality in the typefaces, as well as this has obviously the main difference is a left side navigation rather than the top. I don't think that that makes a huge difference, but some people appreciate the organizational aspect of it, where it kind of has a similar organization that your site has now, where you have a main category and that breaks down into smaller categories. So that's
Right.
something you could incorporate pretty easily with this one. And it also just makes like logical sense for a person visiting the site to kind of just see, all right, I want to see lifestyle photography. And then
Sure.
inside of this, there's active or sport or, brands, stuff like that.
Right.
The other thing that's nice about this one is like the dedicated about page is nicely set up. You can use imagery here, and this is kind of clean and simple and just a nice way to share, any other information you want. Uh,
Right.
as well as the contact page. They have a dedicated contact page on this template. I think it's enough to incorporate that on an about page. They also have like their clients list here. But that's just something to consider. And then there's this one as well. This one's also kind of following along with that minimal design, similar to like a current template that you have. The fonts are nice and bold and easy to read, and then it leads with these larger images rather than text or smaller galleries. This is nice. I think this one for playing with those different sizes of images. So you
Yeah.
can lead with larger images, the stronger work you show off, and then, fill that in with smaller images here. And I also like the kind of like breathing room between the images. This
Yeah.
would work, on the landing page or on any of the galleries as well. And I think it's a really good way to kind of play with like the narrative in the galleries as well, as you can kind of emphasize some photos and then there's breathing room and then there's the next photo,
Sure.
which for for the way that you're showing your work, which is kind of like categories rather than project galleries,
Right.
which there's neither one or the other that's better. I think some photographers like to do specific project categories where it'll be
Right.
one client project after the other. In your case, I think that having everything kind of separated into types of the images, what the types of clients are, I think
Yeah.
that works fine. This one also too has like a nice kind of drop down organization here, that you can incorporate into the different galleries. Obviously, this
Okay.
one's pretty simplified.
Right. Right.
About page on this one, I think that this is great. Like simple, a little blurb about you that you could add what text you do have in the landing pages and the other gallery pages about the work that you do, about yourself, and then having your contact info right there as well. That's easy to
Gotcha.
incorporate on a standalone page like that.
Gotcha.
Um, and that's, that's the template stuff that I have for you in terms of brand identity. So if we want to talk about like reconciling any kind of brand ideas or logos or the way that you're presenting your brand. So the first kind of like thing is we ask is like, do you have a distinct business name? Usually that's either your full name or like in your case, J&J Studio. I think that that's great. That's replicated across all of the platforms that you're using. So like LinkedIn and Facebook,
Right.
Twitter, and here on your site. The only thing that I noted about this is since it's J&J Studio, it implies like there's an additional person maybe,
Yeah.
but it's not immediately apparent as to where that name comes from.
Right.
And I'm not like that doesn't like dull or lessen the presentation to me at all. That
Yeah.
might just be something to kind of say in an about page or anything like that. I don't
Okay.
think there's any problem with the branding. I think that even the logo itself is nice, simple design.
Yeah.
It's memorable. It's easy to see and remember. But yeah, and then in terms of, like I said, consistency, that's across all the platforms, your emails, LinkedIn and et cetera. And then, the clean and simple logo, nice minimal, nice design. And then only note would be for that, using that same logo like on your Instagram, on your Facebook, on your Twitter accounts, just for brand consistency in visual identity. Just
Right.
because I know like looking at Twitter and Instagram, like there's a couple different varied photos that you're using for those. I think in terms and from a branding point of view, just consistent logos on all of those would be something
Gotcha.
to consider. Yeah. And then as far as like typeface and colors, like I said, very simple, clean design. I think that works well with your brand and your visual identity. You might consider like a bit more elegant of like a body copy here and gallery title typeface. They
Mm.
feel maybe a little crowded and a little like hard to read. And then particularly like inside of these, like I was feeling like these are a little crowded under the images.
Yeah.
Just considering that, I think going back to like this, like a little larger of the font. I'm not saying that necessarily all caps, but just those things to keep in mind, that
Right.
this is a little bit small.
Gotcha.
Um, then moving on to the galleries. So, I think here is like a good time to like kind of discuss like what specialties you want to be shooting versus what you're showing. I mean, I noticed that there's maybe not like a specific specialty focus that you have. I think you kind of have like a generalist mindset in terms of what you're shooting.
Yeah.
But if there's anything, like, is there anything that you're trying to nail down or anything that you want to shoot more of or anything that you're focusing on right now?
I mean, essentially just more commercial clients.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a hard aspect because I shoot photo, I shoot video, I enjoy both equally.
Yeah.
So it's not like I want more photography over video or whatnot. Um, I even like product stuff, I enjoy so many different aspects of it all. So it's hard to just say like this is all I want to shoot,
Right.
and that's what I want to target. The more my focus is more the just type of clientele,
Yeah.
rather than style of shooting and whatnot.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's safe to say like you'd want to shoot more for like brands and larger companies
Right,
like clients. Whether that's the corporate stuff or the lifestyle stuff.
right,
You don't really have anyone that you're not trying to back yourself into a niche either, which some
right.
people do and it doesn't work out for them. Some
Yeah,
people are successful with that. I think that in your case, like the generalist kind of like outlook here is definitely working for you. And you're getting a nice range of different types of work and showing that you're capable of doing that type of work.
yeah,
So yeah, I totally understand that. And I think that there's definitely ways to, tighten up and polish up your presentation overall that will kind of appeal more to those larger brands or those
Right.
larger lifestyle or sporting brands or even like the larger corporate clients as well.
Yeah.
In terms of, how that kind of differs from what you're showing now, I think that it is just harder to get a sense of what you might want to shoot more of. But it doesn't feel too generalized. So I wouldn't be afraid to like, maybe slim down an edit and focus just the attention on the best work from all of these categories.
Sure.
And the work that you want more of, which could be the work from those larger brands
Sure.
and larger corporate clients. In terms of the gallery organization, which I think we touched on a little while ago, but I think the landing, like I said, the landing page navigation up here doesn't necessarily sync up well with the landing page image categories.
Right.
So just, maybe thinking about some more concise and like thoughtful gallery organization and navigation here on the landing page. I think that there might be too many categories here on the landing page overall.
Yeah.
They could be organized or just split up and separated and just kind of arranged more simply and more understandably for someone who's just jumping on the site to look for one type of thing.
Right.
Make it easier to find.
Okay.
Other than that, like I said, just like kind of tightening up the edit, simplifying those categories and subcategories. I wouldn't find, I don't think you need to try to fit too many types of photos into one gallery. I would just consider organizing by just fewer simple specialties and simplifying those names to kind of correspond. So yeah,
Sure.
like kind of like the active lifestyle, like that makes sense, or lifestyle and campaigns or lifestyle brands. I think that makes sense. Architecture obviously makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then overall, like in terms of the galleries as a whole, before I get into the individual galleries,
Yeah.
I think that you just want to be careful of those inconsistencies in like the naming conventions and the
Right.
page gallery organization. So, like if you're looking at the commercial advertising photo and video portfolio here, um, you're basically seeing these galleries here, but on the front landing page kind of thing, I think that there's more of a split up here between where these lead and then what you're basically describing them as in the navigation, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It might be kind of like detrimental to have both like a navigation menu and gallery pages that go to the same places,
Gotcha.
or that others are only accessible on the landing page. So like the
Right.
music videos or the celebrities galleries here aren't as easy to navigate to once you're kind of inside of those commercial photo and video portfolios or the corporate and
Right.
business photo video
Right.
portfolios.
Gotcha.
And then other than that, like I was saying, if you want to have like an overview section on the landing page, you could just try curating like a selection of 20 of the best photos that you can find.
Okay.
And the same with the videos of the work that you do. However, I think that if you're going to go with the kind of gallery organization here, yeah, just having like the best photo that you feel, like these are strong images that you're using for the cover photos. So
Yeah.
just consistently, using the strongest image as the kind of cover page for that gallery.
Gotcha.
Other than that, overall, I was looking at, so there are some times like where you're repeating images. So some of the videos in the galleries as well as images in the galleries, I see sometimes more placed than once on the site.
Yeah.
So typically we suggest, keeping one image in one place at all times. It waters down the presentation. It might start to feel repetitive. It can hinder, someone navigating the site and trying to see everything if they start seeing the same work in multiple places.
Gotcha.
I would say also like try not to make too many individual like edits or sequences with the same images being repeated.
Right.
Or like some people are reaching for too many ways to categorize the stuff or thinking about the site as like all these multiple individual edits. Rather think of it as like one cohesive edit broken down into the appropriate sections or like
Right.
chapters, like a book. Um,
Gotcha.
and then, like I said, yeah, sometimes there seems like there might be too many ways to reach the same gallery on the site, whether that's from this landing page or from the navigation there. Just having the navigation directed to one place, in one single kind of conduit. I
Right.
think that there's definitely enough work here. I think just some more thoughtful editing, maybe slimming stuff down. And we can talk about that when we dive into the individual categories and galleries.
Okay.
But yeah. And then other than that, just try to be unbiased when you're doing the editing.
Right.
So obviously, like the most recent, more lucrative work might not necessarily be the most marketable or attractive to
Right.
clients. So, you try to have that outside perspective of like, is this image marketable and super attractive to new clients that I want, or is it
Right.
just an image that I kind of have that attachment to, knowing that it was from a big project or from a lucrative project?
Right. Okay.
Um, and then just trying to be careful about too much text reading inside the galleries. I know, like here, like we had already touched on, you probably move some of this to an about page.
Yeah.
I think that shows up with, like this stuff here at the top of each of these individual categories as well.
Right.
Lead with the images. I just think overall, you want to communicate your visual prowess instead of too
Sure.
much, text.
Sure.
And then, like I was saying, the other note I made here about like if you're thinking of the organization again, like a lot of people think of organizing their sites with like what they consider like keywords that you would assign to those photos. And that
Right.
is something you want to avoid because that's what inevitably leads to that repetition of images in different categories. Because yes, an image can be a lifestyle image, but it also might be a sporting image or sports or
Right.
corporate image, and that might lead you to think, well, if it's got lifestyle and sports attached to it, then it should live in two individual galleries. I
Yeah.
think the best thing to do is just decide on the best place that photo lives and works
Sure.
inside of that gallery and
Sure.
leave it in one place.
Okay.
All right. So let's jump in. Let's jump into the kind of commercial advertising photo and video portfolio here. I think that I already touched on some of the organizational things here.
Mhm.
Let's jump into like the video here. So this feels a bit oversaturated to me. I
Okay.
think there's some great videos in here. I think there's some really like spectacular content to be showing in a video portfolio in this
Mhm.
gallery. But
Mhm.
my worry is that there's too much in here to go through that you might lose someone on less strong presentations uh,
Sure.
than if it was just edited down to a few of the best videos,
Right.
or you consider making just one reel for everything and refreshing that like every 6 months or something like that. I see a lot of
Gotcha.
people who will do that. And then if it's a bigger video project, like something maybe for like the Lexus stuff here, like that might be something you keep as a separate selection of work.
Right.
But yeah, that was my first impression. A little overwhelming in terms of size of
Gotcha.
the content here.
Okay.
Um, I think the other thing too I noticed here is the aerial demo reel. So this kind of harkens back to what I was saying about the organization and not repeating things in too many places. I think
Right.
that the aerial demo reel, it feels like it doesn't belong with these videos. I think that would best be placed like inside of the drone and aerial media category uh,
Gotcha.
rather than here. Because I mean, you're already pretty much saying front and
Right.
foremost, like you do drone and aerial work.
Right.
If that's what they're looking for, they'll know to go there. You don't have to kind of like shoehorn it in to the other gallery.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Um, so let's jump to the lifestyle stuff. So lifestyle and campaigns. Um, I think that here there was some work. The first note I had was that it doesn't necessarily fit into the gallery.
Uh-huh.
So my my one note was about like these two images, so the car images.
Right.
I think that those are better suited. Either, we can talk about that as well as like maybe there's a separate automotive category because I did notice some of that on your site as well.
Yeah.
Uh, but in terms of a lifestyle gallery, I do think that those are like out of place. Like you're kind of coming through this, and then this kind of breaks up the presentation and the flow
Right.
there.
Right.
I would also consider, maybe tightening up this edit a little bit, just leading with the stronger work,
Okay.
and getting rid of the stuff that doesn't necessarily read as a campaign. So
Sure.
there are some images that might be like, all right, well, this doesn't seem like it's a branding campaign per
Right.
se. Um,
Right.
so just being cognizant of that.
Okay.
I think that there's some also that feel more like elevated e-commerce work. So like the stuff on white here, uh,
Yeah.
the baby carriages, and some of this stuff, like the beauty stuff. I think those might be some to consider, like, or is this really helping this gallery,
Right.
or could it go? Is it detracting? Because it is kind of like a jarring break going from these nice kind of like narrative kind of lifestyle images to
Sure.
like the on white, like what seems like e-commerce photography.
Right. Right. Gotcha.
Um, not that these are, not that there's anything technically wrong with these images or they're bad images. I think
Yeah, it's just not
in
the
the
right area
context.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then other than that, I had a note too about, I noticed some like really strong images down here towards the end of this gallery. So
Mhm.
like a lot of these down here, like the people enjoying lunch here, the people
Yeah.
outside, like this image, these stronger images, this one of the couple with the guitar, some of
Yeah.
these images I think could be led with. You could move
Okay.
them further up because I think some of this stuff down here got pushed down here,
Yeah.
where some of these are some of the stronger images in that gallery, and you don't want people to miss out on those if they don't finish scrolling through here.
Right.
Which goes hand in hand with kind of being cognizant of the scope of this gallery edit. Like you might be able to take some of these images out, and trim some of the fat out of there.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, all right, that's all my notes for this one. Did you have any questions about this gallery for me? Anything else
No, not
I
really.
didn't touch on? Okay, okay, cool. Yeah, I'm covering a lot, so just stop me if
Oh, you're good.
stop me if there's something you want to chat about longer. Active lifestyle. So this is the next one I have here. I think that, like I said, this one's a little bit repetitive. I made a note
Right.
about this. These images appear in the previous gallery, and
Right.
honestly, these two probably belong in this one,
Yeah.
the active gallery, rather than in that lifestyle gallery.
Right.
I definitely see like you could consider this lifestyle work, but I think to go along with the other stuff that's in this gallery, they work
Right.
better in a sports gallery
Sure.
specifically. I
Okay.
think too, some of these too, like might actually work better in the lifestyle gallery rather than here. I mean, obviously the active lifestyle stuff, like this works for both.
Right.
But if you want to lead and have more, like that's a really strong image here. So you might want to feature that in just the lifestyle gallery rather
Gotcha.
than here, even though it's really kind of like active and sporting. So
Right.
there might be some measure of like merging or meshing there that you could do with these two galleries.
Gotcha.
Um, and then in here too, like some of the sequencing also feels inconsistent. Like my one note was like having the automotive sports kind of like images here, and then leading into like these other kind of more like domestic lifestyle images, and then jumping back to like auto sports and fitness. So like just try to be cognizant of that as well. Like
Right.
down here we start to get into, okay, so now we're getting into like the auto sports and stuff, but then this image kind of breaks that edit up,
Right.
that mini kind of edit and moment that's happening here by going back
Right.
into like the kind of like yoga lifestyle activities.
Okay.
And then also, yeah, my note again for like the white background, I think that this one, in context of the gallery as a whole, just kind of sticks out.
Right.
Like I said, not as a bad photo, but just because it does feel like, maybe product photography rather than
Sure.
focusing on the lifestyle aspect of it.
Sure.
Okay, let's go to the next one here. Still life. So this one, I think you could. This one I had a note about the like name of this gallery. So
Uh-huh.
still like product food. I think that you could simplify this to just like product and food. I mean, I think like that's just going along with the, having too much text or expose.
Right.
It's just simplifying those gallery names. This is kind of ones that I could point at as an example of just saying, product and food photography. The fact that it's still life is going to be implied.
Sure.
But yeah, other than that, for this one, I think it's pretty straightforward. Careful showing like too many of these product on white background images while you have these
Yeah.
other kind of really nice like environmental branding images in here.
Yeah.
With this one, if that's a large portion of your work, it might just be good call to make like a specific gallery for any kind of like e-commerce stuff
Gotcha.
or product, on white stuff,
Gotcha.
or even just separating that into like the latter half of this gallery, where
Right.
they're not kind of peppered in.
Okay.
Um, and then for this one too, like I made a note of just trying to narrow down some of the most compelling images here. I think there is some work that's a little weaker, that's detracting from the gallery as a whole.
Yeah.
Careful of those images like next to or near each other that might conflict like visually in terms of like, like this photo of like the steak or the meat on the grill. It
Right.
contrasts so much with these like white, kind of light,
Right.
airy images around it
Yeah.
that it sticks out. So, and like I said, like there's tons of consideration that could be taken here into maybe you just make like a food product gallery
Yeah.
and then focus on the other like hard goods and still life product stuff in another gallery.
Sure. Okay.
Sometimes they don't mesh well together.
Right.
And then let's go to the next one here. So aerial and drone, which you have inside of this gallery and then also in the navigation as a separate area.
Right.
Does this go to the same gallery then? Yeah, it does. So my suggestion there was going along with what I said earlier. I
Yeah.
would just nix this link inside of the commercial advertising video
Okay.
portfolio and just have it up here in the top navigation because someone might get confused if they are looking through your whole website. They'll
Right.
say, okay, I'm going to look at the aerial drone stuff
Right.
and then see that and then go back here and say, wait, this is just the same gallery.
Right.
Just the other thing too to keep in mind is like clients when they look at a website, like you got their attention for like 10 seconds.
Right.
So like just
Yeah.
try to use that time as efficiently as possible. Don't lead them on any kind of wild goose chase around this stuff.
Gotcha.
But other than that, it feels really concise. I think it's a good overview of the type of work you're doing here. I don't think that there's nothing that sticks out as improperly in this kind of like aerial and drone still photography gallery.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think that this one's pretty straightforward. Just reorganize it into there with
Sure.
the video
Okay.
stuff. Great. Architecture. So this one, I think that I was noticing just a few repeats in this one from other
Okay.
galleries of the kind of like expo shows for booth designers. I know
Right.
that those appear in a couple other places. But otherwise this one, I think this one feels pretty consistent and well polished.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you do a lot of architectural photography?
Not, I mean, not a whole lot. I've got a few clients that I'll shoot some stuff for, but it's not a huge part of my business.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think this is a nice edit. I think that it's concise enough to like if a client does come to your site and they're like, yeah, I need some, interior design or architectural
Right.
photography, this is a good overview. Only other thing would be maybe considering like a refresh, tightening up some of the
Sure.
images that feel a little outdated. I know there's some in here that might be from a while ago.
Yeah.
Consistent with like you just want to make sure like they are consistent with what feels like new and current architecture.
Right. Okay.
All right. then let's go to the next one here, which I believe is branded. Yeah. So the branded imagery. So this is where I was seeing some of those repeats from architecture in.
Right.
I know those are weird ones because like it is like where do those live? Uh,
Right.
but I think that those in this case, I think these kind of like branded booth designs, like I think those belong in the architecture area because it's more about like the design and layout of those
Sure.
booths than it is necessarily about the brand. Uh,
Sure.
but in this case, this gallery itself also you might consider it might just be unnecessary. You might be able to portion this stuff out
Right.
into other galleries where they belong. And this too, where I was starting to notice that you may have enough automotive and auto sports imagery here to just warrant a standalone gallery.
Right.
So like the stuff in the active lifestyle gallery, you could just make an auto or
Yeah. Yeah.
automotive and auto sports gallery where a lot of this stuff could live. Because individually, like these images, like of the cars and the interiors and stuff,
Yeah.
and I think that that is enough there to like show that you're proficient in taking automotive photos. That I
Yeah.
wouldn't want them, which is that's a pretty huge client base as well.
Right.
So I
Right.
woun't want those to get lost in this kind of orphan gallery that's
Sure.
branded design stuff.
Sure.
Um, but other than that, I think that, like I said, yeah, separating a lot of this out into corresponding galleries. It
Yeah.
looks like it could be filtered into like lifestyle, some product stuff, the architecture and auto stuff, and then maybe even some of this might be better transferred into like some of the corporate events,
Gotcha.
some of this
Yeah.
stuff even.
Yeah. I always had a problem like identifying what qualifies as like a branded image or whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah, it's a hard gap. It's a hard like it's definitely a hard like category for photographers to like put their thumbs on and say like, well,
right.
this is a branded image and this one isn't because it's like, anything you shoot for a brand is
Right.
technically a branded image.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so like and that's the thing then too. Like if it's even kind of like a little muddy for you, then it might be best to just separate this stuff out into where, try to detach yourself from knowing what these images were for and what they're from and just
Right.
look at the image from an outside point of view. Like this to me, like I'd say that's lifestyle, like these two
Right.
here. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Then let's go to fashion and designer gallery here. So this one, I think you could probably just simplify this name to like just fashion.
Yeah.
I think that this one's pretty straightforward as well. Pretty concise here. I think the this gallery you might be suffering from a few repeats from previous galleries and as well. I think yeah, just finding the best single place for those to live. Some of these could probably, match up with the lifestyle gallery, but for their purposes, they do belong in a fashion gallery. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I think
Okay.
that the other note I had here was, some of the so careful of the processing here. So some of the images might not mesh visually with the rest of the gallery as a whole. Like if
Right.
you have certain work, client work, mixed in here together, consider like reprocessing everything to have that similar feel match up. So like, all right. So what I was saying here is like these two images, they feel like different processing than the rest of the stuff around them. Um,
Yeah.
so the thing to be careful of is just make sure that that processing matches up with the rest of the gallery. It just kind of makes them stand out. Even if it's stuff that like a client had you process one way or they were looking for
Right.
one look, if you have to go back into the files and reprocess,
Okay.
just sequence them with similar images together.
Gotcha.
And then also like, consider taking into consideration again anything that feels a little too e-commercey,
Right.
maybe like the layout here,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Okay.
And then I think the next thing was so magazine editorials. I think this one, this one also you might kind of want to consider if it's necessary or not. I think
Yeah.
that separating out the so like I would do like possibly a gallery of just tear sheets. So I know like there's obviously
Gotcha.
stuff that is going to be anything like being used in like a page layout. So like
Right.
this stuff, you could have a tear sheets gallery. The rest of it, like the non-tear sheet work, you might just want to separate out that work into any of the other galleries. You know, some
Gotcha.
of them I think are strong enough images on their own that they could just live in those lifestyle or fashion galleries.
Right.
You know, stuff like that.
Okay.
Uh, and then, you know, like I said, some of these are repeated images anyway, so they don't
Right.
need here.
Right. Okay.
Then with that, let's jump over to like the other side here, the corporate and business video and photo stuff. So this might be one to consider simplifying like the navigation name here too, where it is just, you know, maybe you consider simplifying this to just corporate and then breaking it down to videos, events, and headshots as subcategories or something like
Right.
that.
Gotcha.
Because after coming from this here with all these different categories and then jumping over to here where it's just okay, there's video and then there's corporate.
Right.
You know, just finding a way to make that organization feel
Right.
intentional and kind of more streamlined. With this one, I think the video stuff, like the selection of work here is good. You know, I think like we were saying before, just tightening up the some of the work in here with just the strongest work. Uh,
Right.
I think that some of the videos feel a little too similar to each other. So like if you're looking at if I come in here, corporate video portfolio, uh, like obviously there's some that are repeated from
Right.
the other galleries, but there's some that are just, you know, if they are like conference recaps or something like that, if there's,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of these in here, maybe just find the one that you feel has like the best video and motion
Yeah.
work in it,
Yeah.
because that will get your point across. I think if there's too many of them, it's going to water down that presentation as a whole, and
Gotcha.
people might miss the stronger videos that you have in here.
Gotcha.
Um, and then other than that, like might just even consider separating out the non-event work into its own, you know, the other video portfolio that you have going.
Okay.
But yeah. So corporate photo portfolio now, let's jump to that. I think that this one, it also is suffering from some of those kind of inconsistencies in like the edit and the sequences here.
Uh-huh.
So like, you know, the industrial stuff here next to the headshots, um,
Right.
you know, thinking about the way that images are kind of existing around the other images in this gallery.
Right.
And that's another reason why I was talking about, you know, highlighting some of these images with a template that allows you to kind of resize the images. So like smaller images for the stuff that might just be, you know, run of the mill event stuff,
Sure.
and then highlighting the stronger stuff, or like, you know, smaller headshots, because, you know, people might have, those might have less of an impact than like the nice polished kind of like industrial work or
Right.
the lifestyle stuff that you're seeing in here, the corporate lifestyle stuff.
Okay.
I think the other thing too, like this might be where you consider having a dedicated headshots gallery. So
Yeah.
like the headshots on white, I think detract from some of this really nice, like polished, like corporate events and lifestyle work that's in here. I
Yeah.
think there's enough here, and I'm sure you have others that you could probably flesh out like a full gallery of just headshot work. Because
Right.
I mean, especially with like the corporate brands in mind, like a lot of companies will just come to someone's site and be like, I just want to look at their headshot work.
Right.
So
Right.
that's what I need. That's what I'm looking for. So it might be easy to direct that traffic more meaningfully by just having a dedicated headshot gallery.
Okay.
And then also, like I said, I think tightening up the edit, some of the weaker, like dated work,
Yeah.
anything that's not suited for this gallery. Um,
Right.
I think there's, you know, there's a few things in here that I think are similar enough, like these images are
Right.
similar enough, just, you know, one or the other.
Yeah.
Same with like a lot, obviously, like with event stuff and like this kind of expo stuff, like there's so much that you get from
Right.
all of those. So yeah, I can definitely sense the difficulty in editing down all of that work to the best stuff.
Right.
Um, and then yeah, like I think that, like I said, some of this work, it feels like these kind of like sporting events or like these lifestyle events,
Right.
which might be better in a lifestyle gallery even.
Gotcha.
Even though they're a class, they're technically an event, and
Right.
might be related to a corporation. Think about like that image standalone, like walking off the street. What is this image, and what is, where does that belong?
Right.
Rather than knowing the context of it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then let's jump back. So like the Fort Worth, Dallas drone aerial media, this might even be another one you could just consider simplifying to drone and aerial. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're saying in your opener, obviously they know your Dallas Fort Worth area. I think that in terms of the edit here, like obviously we know we've seen this repeated elsewhere on the site
Right.
sometimes, so I'd just
Right.
condense any relevant work of this type into this section.
Okay.
Uh, and then, like I had said earlier, that aerial demo reel that's in the commercial and advertising video
Yeah.
portfolio, I noticed that one is not in this portfolio then. So
Gotcha.
I think that it might make more sense to keep all of that in one place.
Sure. Okay.
All right. So that kind of covers the galleries. I was going to cover some stuff like, the about and contact pages, as well as like some notes on social media as well. But is there
Yeah.
anything that we can touch on while we're still on the topic of like the galleries on here?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Pretty
Yeah, no
clear.
worries. And like I said, I'm going to summarize all of these notes and you'll have
Right.
as well. So no worries there. So the next things that I was going to talk about here. So we typically will cover any additional pages like an about or a contact page.
Right.
Um, so what I noted about that is like you are kind of missing like a proper bio or about page. I know that
Yeah.
you kind of have those blurbs elsewhere on the site at the beginning of the
Yeah.
galleries and stuff like that. But it'd be nice to see like a little exposition like on either yourself or your business, a dedicated info page like what you have kind of broken up into the corporate and the commercial galleries as
Right.
well as on the landing page. But you might be able to summarize that in an about page as well.
Sure. Okay.
In terms of contact information, and where all of that is obviously present. It's up to date. All of your hyperlinks work properly.
Yeah.
So all good marks there. Might consider like an additional placement of these links in the footer as well. So like
Okay.
your social links when someone gets to the bottom of the page, always nice because I typically, if I'm looking for someone's Instagram, if I'm on their
Right.
gallery, I'll always scroll to the bottom of the page to look for that link.
Gotcha.
Um, the other thing, just a note is that the phone number is hyperlinked and just links to email, I believe. Uh,
Okay.
I mean, that's more like personal
Right.
preference. Obviously, you could link it to like a call app like Skype or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think you necessarily need to link it to anything, but
Okay.
that was just one note that I jotted
Gotcha.
down as I was
Sure.
clicking on everything randomly to see if it was.
Right.
Um, and then yeah, the contact info also like it might be better to have that corralled on a contact or about page.
Okay.
I worry that sometimes it gets lost in the footer if people are scrolling through galleries quickly and then might look for how to contact you. Obviously, it's in the top navigation here, but
Right.
my recommendation against that is it adds like complexity to this navigation. So that's why I always just suggest having a dedicated like contact page
Sure.
or combo contact and about page.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, so like with the bio, I think that having a good bio is just going to give like a sense of personality, short info about the studio and like the type of work. It feels a little impersonal or like sterile, like I was saying before.
Right.
So just being cognizant of that and like the the personality that you're showing in the work. Clients, obviously they're business minded and they want to see the photography and have like successful work done for them, but also like a lot of people want a little bit of personality and personal info on the photography,
Right.
even if
Yeah.
that's just like a blurb about you and your work.
Okay.
But yeah. Headshot. So you don't have a headshot on here right now, I don't think.
Right.
Um, would be nice to see with that kind of about and contact info, like just a snap of yourself or the studio, or even like a BTS of you on set.
Right.
Just adding some of that personality and humanity to
Okay.
the role. The client list, you have a client list. I think that's great. Might consider that making it like maybe more prominent. I think it only shows up. I'm forgetting
Yeah.
where I saw the client list
Yeah.
before.
I think it's on the corporate side actually.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah, current and previous clients here, and then I believe it is also here. Yeah. So that's the other thing too, is like I think having a client list on your site is awesome. I think that's great to do, and it gives people an idea of the types of people and brands that you work with.
right.
That might be something to add to, the footer on your landing page as well.
Yeah.
Uh, or like I was saying earlier, condensing more of that, more of the text and expose to an about page or content.
Right. Okay.
Um, the only other thing I noticed and made a note of was, the copyright.
Uh-huh.
Copyright 2007. I would suggest just updating that to current year. Some people see that and think it's like neglected. If
Oh,
it's
gotcha.
current year, that's just a matter of going into the template editor and
Sure.
updating that.
Okay.
And then lastly, social media stuff. So I wanted to touch on like social media presence and anything there. Looking at like the Instagram and LinkedIn and all that stuff. I think, like I said, consider using the same logo that you're using on the site, even if
Yeah.
it's just the J&J logo. I would, change that to the profile on all your
Okay.
social media stuff for the brand consistency. And then the other thing that I noted here was the J&J Studio Instagram feed. I don't
Uh-huh.
think this was Yeah, this wasn't working for me. I don't know if that's
Oh,
just
gotcha.
in, but if you have like a feed set up there, make that sure that's active. Or if you're already prominently linking to Instagram in the navigation or elsewhere on the site, you might
Right.
not need that. That might be another thing, just adding some complexity to your site navigation.
Right. Okay.
Other than that, like the Instagram, I think that you utilize that like pretty well. I think that it's consistent posting. You got a nice mix of like portfolio work and BTS and personal stuff on there that is the type of stuff that clients like when they land on an Instagram page.
Right.
They don't want just like a perfect mimic of your website. In most
Right.
cases, they like to see some of the BTS stuff of you working.
Yeah.
And also, other than that, like it seems like you're posting pretty regularly. The only other thing I note, and I see that you have one now, but like just posting stories and engaging consistently.
Right.
If people are commenting or liking stuff, like especially for like photographers, like engaging in that community around the photography. Instagrams are
Right.
it always like helps with your engagement and followings as well.
Okay.
And that I think brings us to the end. Like the extent of the notes that I have for the website.
Cool.
I think we covered everything here. Is there anything that I didn't touch on, or anything that you were curious about? Um, you know,
Uh, not, no, I mean that, yeah, that pretty much covers it and is helpful. Um, yeah, I can't really think of anything else that, I'm kind of like curious about.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, yeah, because it's my website is, that's the whole portfolio and everything. That's what everybody's going to see. So I know that's what I needed to definitely kind of tighten up and
yeah,
figure out better. Um, I guess so one thing I am curious about is as far as like commercial clients and so forth, is it harmful to have event stuff on the website?
Not if you have it separated the way that you do, which is
Yeah.
smart, that you've done it that way, and that's what we always suggest. Having that corporate photo video side, which there is commercial corporate photography, obviously, like corporate
Right.
lifestyle stuff for brands. But I
Yeah.
think having like the headshots and the event stuff, if some people will go as far as having a separate website for it. I don't think that that's always necessary or realistic to do.
Right.
Having it separate in its own kind of like corral on the site makes sense, because there's no harm in showing that you do that work and that you're capable of doing it.
Yeah.
There's plenty of photographers that shoot for national brands and then still will take headshots and do event
Right.
stuff from time to time. And if that's like a portion of your business, then it's definitely worth showing it on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and then I guess so as far as the about or bio, so when I originally started the business, my wife and I, we shot together and we started it with basically like shooting weddings and portraits and all that
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
And then like we ended up having a baby and she couldn't help out anymore, but like I already built the brand name and
Right.
so
The
forth.
brand name's
So
there. Yeah.
yeah, so and of course like I don't like we got out of weddings years ago as well. So is any of that particular aspect like important to mention or harmful to mention or
Well, I
I
don't
don't
think
want
it's
people to be like,
harmful.
oh, he used to be a wedding
Yeah, no, I don't think
photographer.
it's harmful to mention at
Yeah,
all. I think like if you built a brand around that name, I mean, that's still part of your brand, and like,
right,
that's your wife and your family. I think that even just like if you mention that in an about page, like, what started as a husband and wife photo team has evolved into, and then
right.
listing off all the great things that you work on now. Something as
Gotcha.
simple as that in one sentence
Okay.
is enough. I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily like vague about the branding and like the logo itself.
Yeah.
My only concern is sometimes there are like photographers who like portray themselves like way more aggressively as like a studio full of people
Gotcha.
doing all these
Yeah.
different things, and like
Right.
our team this and our team that, and
Right.
our staff this and our staff that. And I
Yeah.
think that sometimes that can be misleading to clients, because they
Right.
think that there's this like, this franchise of people working for
Yeah.
this studio, and it's really only just like one photographer who's
Right.
kind of
Right.
talking in like like a multiplicity.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah.
So yeah, that's just something. But yeah, I think like your logic behind it makes total sense. And like I said, I mean, J&J Studio is easy to remember. It
Right.
works well as like a brand logo and everything. And it holds personal value to the business, because it was something that started with you and your wife. So
Right.
you're not going to get rid of that brand after you built a brand around it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean that pretty much covers it. I appreciate the direction and
Yeah,
advice
yeah,
and everything.
absolutely. Yeah, I think all this is just, like I said, a great jumping off point for, tightening
Right.
stuff up as you kind of are building up the business and continuing to kind of market and all that. And the other thing, it could lead to is every time that you do refresh your site or update your edits, like that's always a great time to like think about your marketing and stuff like
Sure.
that. And it just kind of forces you to rethink like all the important aspects of your business, even just by taking one small step and looking at your presentation, or
Right.
how well your
Right.
site works in this design.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing too is like, the next steps for you, if there is, more help that you're looking for out there, whether that's Wonderful Machine or just next thing to do on, in your like list of things to do.
Yeah.
But start thinking about like the edits. Like, do you need to do an overhaul and tighten up some edits, or upload new work, or rebrand stuff and
Sure.
shift like the focus of the photography and the presentation.
Sure. Okay.